I feel like anytime a topic like your top 10 series or something comes up, all it's going to do is drive out a lot of people to say, well, what about this, and this? Well, I thought I have the perfect complement to the video of my top 10 fantasy series of all time, and it is 11 fantasy series that I haven't read yet. Hey, what's up, bookworms and fantasy fans? Mike back with another list today. I hate to do two lists in the matter of a week because I'm not really crazy about them. I think that they get good conversation, but it also gets a lot of people like competing up front. These are always opinion. There are no wrong answers here. This is really just kind of a compliment to that video of my top 10 favorite fantasy series because it was a lot of, well, what about this or this? I haven't read those yet because I just isn't enough hours in the day to read everything. So this is everything I have on my radar to read, and it isn't just going to kind of be a rehash of the series I want to start in 2021 because there are a lot of series that I won't be getting to probably within the next couple of years, but I do know about them and I would like to read them. So I'm going to kind of tack that now, and what this is 11 series that I know about, I want to read, and I'm going to put them in the order of when I want to read them. So we're going to count backwards from. Let's start with a couple of honorable mentions first. His Dark Materials is something that has fallen on and off of my TBR list so many times. I think the problem there is that fans always just come at me about, yeah, it's really great, but man, that third book really just shits the bed. And it's really hard to be like, do I really want to get into another series where it's almost unanimous that the last book is bad? So if you feel differently, please drop in the comments and tell me that you feel differently, because the overwhelming majority have told me that they think that the last book is terrible. So that's always kind of put me off there. Another one is The Axe of Cain by Matthew Stover. I know absolutely nothing about this series. What it was, I think that he wrote my favorite non-Timothy Zahn Star Wars EU book of all time, and that was called Traitor. And if you read the Star Wars EU, you know why that was such an important book to me. And he was just so good in that, I looked up for anything that he had written other than that. And I came across The Axe of Cain. And that's been waiting for me for years now, and I've just never got to it. Don't know why. I think maybe it's just because I haven't had people drilling me nonstop about, you got to try this series out. So if you have anything positive to say about that or negative, hey, please hit me in the comments now that we get to the start of the real list. Let's start with the number 11. Now, this is something that I've obviously been interested in for a long time. She is one of the pillars of fantasy, and that is, of course, Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. And I just realized I've been saying her name wrong my whole life. I've been saying Le Guin up until recently. Ursula Le Guin, know absolutely nothing about this series. I remember trying to watch the series that they made, The Wizard of Earthsea. They made that series on, I don't know why my phone is saying Siri's not available, because I'm not talking to you, Siri. Guess she's got opinions about this too. But yeah, if you watch that series on Sci-Fi Channel, you understood why. Well, this isn't moving up my list any. And now looking back on it, I'm like, well, that was a really stupid reason not to. It was different back then. Back then, I was like, well, I'll watch the movie or the TV show, and if I like that, then I'll read the books. Now I'm like, oh, this is coming out, I've got to read it before I watch it. So it was different back then. So obviously, I would love to try that just based off of what I've heard about it and the desire I have to read more female fantasy authors. I feel like that's something that has really, really kind of crept into my mind a little bit about. If you just keep reading nothing but male fantasy, you're going to start to get burned out on it. So I'd like to move in some ladies into the fantasy spot on my list, because guys can't write romance. There, I said it. I don't know anything about Earthsea at all, but I am very, very interested in getting into it. Check out that video I did on my 11 series that I want to start in 2021 for more on the why I want to read some female authors. Number 10 is The Saxon Tales by Bernard Cornwell. Haven't read them ever, even really knew about them until recently. I started watching The Last Kingdom on Netflix. A lot of people had told me I had that Vikings-sized hole in my heart. Vikings is one of my favorite series ever. And they said Last Kingdom, I think I'll scratch that itch for you. Start slow and then it just gets amazing. And just after I found out that they're doing 2 of his books per season of that show, and I said, that's a really, really great idea. So I very, very much am interested in reading those books because obviously I'm really, really into Viking culture and history and things like that. So I would definitely like to check that out. If you guys have anything to say about that, I've actually had I think it's Bernard Cornwell's Arthur Legend stuff that he's done that most people have recommended to me. I don't know. I've never read the author, but right now it is Uhtred, a son of Uhtred, that I would like to read about. Number 9, and this is something that just recently came up. I told people, I'm going to be starting this series blank. Are there any other series that you guys want to start or you'd be interested in me starting? Because I just like to always open up. I like to hear what you guys want to know on the community tab. And an overwhelming number of people said the Rift War Saga by Raymond Feist. Is it Feist or Feast? Please let me know, because I don't want to say these authors' names wrong. I feel like that's disrespectful. I just don't know. I've never heard his name actually physically said. So I'm saying Feist for now. But Rift War, another one. Don't know very much about it, except that people that love it absolutely love it. So anything that you guys can fill me in on that one, please do. I don't know if he falls under the classic, like a David Eddings. I don't know if he kind of falls in that category or not. I really don't know how old these books are, honestly. So I haven't done any research on them because here's the thing, guys. If I research some of these series, I'm going to end up getting excited about them and moving them up my list. And I'm trying to keep some structure, damn it. So Rift War is not happening anytime soon, but it is definitely on the radar. Number 8, this is a big one. I believe I've read a Discworld book before when I was very young, and I first got into fantasy, and I was trying to eat up everything I can. This is when I read a Sword of Truth book, and it turned into everybody saying that I love Sword of Truth, apparently, because I said I read one book as a preteen. But my brother had a Discworld book, and I read it and had no idea what was going on. But I don't think it was the first one. I know that. But this series is like 40-something books long. But it's something that I'm interested in because obviously Terry Pratchett is a name that is trusted and respected among the fantasy community. But I think I don't know if people do know this, that I am a huge fan of Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide. I mean, who isn't? I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. Every paragraph ends in a joke. It's just wonderful. It's just a good time, but it's not, covering up a bad story or something. It's a great story too. And a lot of people said, then you would definitely like Discworld because it's basically the fantasy version of Hitchhiker's Guide. So if that is the case, sure. I've heard that it has a slow start, but once it finds its footing, like most fantasy stories do, that you'll just be in stitches with laughter and love. So, yeah, very, very interested. I mean, I've seen the art, of the giant turtle forever, and it would be interesting to know, the whole history of that or whatnot. So, I really don't know what. I mean, in my mind, it kind of almost seems like it'd be something almost like Monty Python-ish, and I don't know why. That's just kind of what I've always kind of imagined when people tell me it's like the fantasy version of Douglas Adams. So that one would probably move up as time gets closer, just because of how many people whose opinions I trust have really recommended the series to me. Number 7, the Prince of Nothing series by R. Scott Baker. This is one that my Dune friends have recommended to me a lot. I love Dune, in case anyone doesn't know that, and I've never been able to find anything quite like Dune. I mean, I feel like that's why it's special, because it's unique. See, I try to talk about Prince of Nothing, and then I bring up Dune, and then I can't shut up about Dune, so I have to cut my own self off here. Prince of Nothing is apparently very, very heavy. It's something that's going to really, really dominate your time and your mental capacity. So it's something that I'm like, okay, I only want to pick up one heavy series in 2021, and I want that to be something that I'll talk about here a little later. It is on the list, and then you guys are, daily followers of the channel. You understand what that series is. But anyhow, in 2021, I've got that heavy series kind of check marked off. So I don't want to start this right now, but I do own the first 3 back there, and I feel like I believe it's spun off into another series now called the Aspect Emperor. But the whole series is actually called, I believe, the Second Apocalypse. But the first trilogy is the Prince of Nothing. And outside of just knowing that it's supposedly very, very heavy, there's another author I haven't read, but I follow her Twitter, and I do want to read her. And I believe she's happening in 2021. That's Anna Smith Spark, and she just can't say enough about this trilogy, about how amazing it is. And when I hear another author gush about series that are special to them, it always, registers with me. I love hearing things like that. I love hearing what influenced other authors to write. So, again, I wish I had more to add about these things, guys. But if you want to know me explaining about series, check out my top 10 fantasy series. I feel like I explain those much better. With this, I don't know very much about them, and I'm hoping that you guys can kind of supplement me in the comments. Number 6. I do know a little bit about this one. That is Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. And the reason, again, I'm sorry if you're a daily follower of the channel and you've heard me tell this story before, but I got to tell it again. When I first discovered A Song of Ice and Fire in the early 2000s, my brother, who was 6 years older than me, is the one who was like my gateway to fantasy. And I called him. Every time I discover a new fantasy series, I'll call him and be like, hey, have you checked this out? I really recommend it. And I said, have you checked out these Song of Ice and Fire books before? And when I first start talking, he just like cuts me off. And he says, I don't want to hear about that Tad Williams ripoff. I'm like, what? He's like, those books are nothing but a ripoff of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I read those, years ago. You should read those and put that crap down. I'm like, okay. To this day, I don't know if that's true. I have heard that comparison many, many times. So that's really my understanding of it. Outside of that, all I know is apparently the first book is very, very slow, and then it just takes off like a rocket. And the last book is like, it's like Wheel of Time thick. It's huge. But Tad Williams obviously has the reputation he does for a reason. And I feel kind of ashamed to say I'm a fantasy fan and I've never read Tad Williams at this point, because I just feel like he's one of the pillars of the community. So very cool Twitter follow too, by the way, if you didn't know that. But that will definitely be happening within the next couple of years for sure. Number 5, not a single one of these fantasy videos goes by without someone bringing up the Elric saga by Michael Moorcock. I talked about this briefly in my 11 series I want to read in 2021 and why it didn't make the list. I've had lots of problems just trying to understand a reading order for this series. I feel like everyone gives me a different reading order for it. So I don't care about side books or nothing like that or prequel stories. I just want the main meat of the story. And if I love it, I'll go back to it. It's like when I said I wanted to read Malazan. People are like, well, you got to read all these. And then, I'm not reading 23 books, guys. I just want to read the main story. And if I love it, I've got no problem filling in those gaps later. Same thing happened with Dresden Files. Well, you got to read all the side stories and you got to read them in chronological order. No, I don't. I'm going to read the main story, and then I'm going to go back and fill in those holes later because I'm terrified of spoilers, and I also don't want to prolong something if I'm not absolutely bonkers about it. So if I'm bonkers about something, I'll do a chronological read like that on a reread. I'll do it that way. But Elric, obviously, I understand the legacy it has. I've read some of the comics. I don't know how faithful those are. I don't know if I've read any of them in order. I mean, it was just 2 or 3 of them just because I thought the art was fantastic. But don't know a ton about it. But there's so many people who always drop in the comments and be like, you should just scrap all this shit and read Elric because it's all you need. So I know that the fandom for that is otherworldly. And for a reason. I mean, obviously Michael Moorcock, his comments about my dude Tolkien aside, he has a reputation in the community as one of the best. So I definitely would like to see what is going on there, especially, I mean, even if it's just the first Elric book. I think it's Elric of Melindrome or Born or something. Anyway, again, I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I'd like to see what the hype about it is, because a lot of people say that a lot of more popular fantasy stories have kind of ripped it off. And I feel like everyone feels like that about some kind of series or whatnot. But yeah, I would just like to kind of ease my curiosity. And that's why I kind of moved up this list as I was making it. It was kind of lower at first, but it moved up. Now, a couple of these you're probably going to say, I've heard you talk about these before, but that's the reason they're high up on this list, because they're going to be happening sooner rather than later. That is, at number 4 is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I'm going to start with Farseer next year. I'm really, really curious to see how this works, because it seems like the people either absolutely love Farseer or they absolutely hate it. There doesn't seem to be a lot of a middle ground there. Either it's absolutely boring or it's an amazing character study. I really can't decide. So I want to make that decision for myself. I bought that beautiful illustrated edition, and it's the first time I believe it has been in hardcover in the States. So I was like, this is the perfect opportunity for me to say, I'm going to check out some Hobb. Hobb has been on my TBR list since high school, man, and I have no idea why I've always pushed it off. So I'm not committing to reading The Realm of the Elderlings. I'm committing to reading the Farseer trilogy first. And if I love that, obviously I'll keep going. But because I'll say I'm going to read Farsighter, and people are like, what about the rest of them? I'm not committing to another 18 or 21 books. Guys, I'm just now about to finish The Wheel of Time, okay? I don't want to see a series that long again for a while. Slow down. Slow down. So I'm hoping that the way that the Farsighter trilogy goes is it can be a closed story if you want it to be. You know, that's where I'm hoping. But I am very, very excited to do it. Again, I think that she has the reputation of someone who's one of the best. So I'm very, very interested in seeing her prose, seeing her storytelling devices, seeing her character work, because I've heard that her characters will just flat out make you cry. So I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm very, very excited. That almost got bumped up a little bit, but something else kind of stole its place here. And I'll talk about that in a second. Number 3, I am a huge, huge Joe Abercrombie fan, if you guys don't know. I love the grimdark subgenre. I feel like he has the one who has perfected it. And a common comment that I see is, you feel like Joe perfected what Glenn Cook did 20 years ago with the Black Company. And that's why it's number 3 on this list. It was either going to be Malazan or Black Company that happened in 2021 as my big series that I was going to be reading. And just the overwhelming support. I put that up for a vote, and Malazan ran away with it. So it's going to be Malazan because I like to give the people what they want, right? And but Black Company obviously apparently is the granddaddy of the grimdark subgenre before it was even a thing. So I'm definitely interested in getting to it. I own the whole series back there, and it's 10 decently sized books, but I've never read anything by Glenn Cook. And yeah, this series just seems like it's just legendary. And it's like people that have actually read it just love it to death. And they tell me, we just based off of the things that you see on this channel, this is going to be right in your sweet spot. So no other explanation needed. I mean, it needs to happen because that's my brand, right? Number 2, something I've talked about a ton on this channel, and it is actually happening. Even though I have it number 2, the reason is because I have my schedule planned out for number 1. But number 2 is The Banished Lands. That is The Faithful and the Fallen and Of Blood and Bone series by John Gwynne. This is an author I have never read, yet I have bought 7 of his books. And I plan on doing a why you should read, or not why you should read, or why I decided to read on John Gwynne's books, The Faithful and the Fallen, here pretty soon. And this is just based off of people that know what I like and people whose opinions I trust have just gushed about this series, about how like this is the biggest hidden gem in modern fantasy that there is, and how it takes traditional fantasy, brings it into a modern twist, kind of like a Michael J. Sullivan does with Rhaenyra, but yet it is very Song of Ice and Fiery in that it's except that it's actually complete. It's kind of important. So I can't tell you very, very much about it. I'm afraid of spoilers because the last book in his second series just came out. And I feel like people were actually talking about it, and I was like, I don't want to know about book number 7 when I haven't started book 1 yet. And it's 2 separate series, but it takes place in the same world, so that's why I'm going to call it book number 7. The Faithful and the Fallen is 4 books, and then I think it's supposed to be years later in the same universe is books 5 through 7, which is the Of Blood and Bone series, which some people say is even better. So there are lots of reviewers that I trust, lots of readers that I trust, and they say that John Gwynne just gets better with every book. And, this is after they're given the first book 5 stars. So that's just, that's special. That's special. I've heard people say that he is... the guy I trust a lot on Goodreads named Petrick, his favorite authors are Joe Abercrombie and Brandon Sanderson, as are a lot of people's. And he said that he feels like he's every bit up there with those two. And that's just like, wow. That's like the highest compliment that you can get with modern fantasy, in my opinion. So, it's actually happening. I've got a couple, as of this recording, I have a couple 100 pages left in the last Wheel of Time book. And after I dry my tears from that, I think I'm going to pick up Malice. That's the first book in The Faithful and the Fallen. I'm going to be starting that soon. But the reason that it's number 2 and not number 1 is because number 1 is Malazan, the Book of the Fallen by Scott Erickson. So why am I not starting it instead of Malice next week? Well, because I have to recharge my batteries. I just finished off, or about to finish off Wheel of Time. Last thing I want to do, while I'm completely emotionally drained from that series, is start another very, very thick series. I know that Wheel of Time has more books, but apparently Malazan has more words, more pages, more characters, more continents. So I wanted to recharge the batteries a little bit, so I actually have a thing going on the channel. I'm going to be starting January of 2021 on Malazan with Gardens of the Moon, and I actually am surprised how many other people were like, I shall help you carry this burden, Frodo, and they're going to jump on board with me, and they're going to try to read along. And I know a lot of people say, when you read too fast, I can't read along with you. I am not going to be doing this like Wheel of Time. With Malazan, I'm going to take my time. I'm definitely not going to be speed reading these. Apparently, these really require a lot of thought, a lot of patience, and a lot of time. So, yeah, it's going to be like one book every 2 or 3 months kind of thing. It's not going to be, 2 or 3 per month like I did when I first started Wheel of Time. It's going to be a slow roll. So if you want to join me on that, I mean, I know it's weird to ask you, hey, about 8.5 months from now we're going to start this. But that is the plan at the moment. And guys, those are the 11 series that I haven't read, that I know about, I'm well aware of, and I do have plans to read before I shuffle off this mortal coil. Hopefully. So guys, what are some series you haven't read that you want to read? Let me know down in the comments. Do you have anything to say about these, 13, 14 series I just mentioned, or something else? Please drop in the comments. No spoilers. Try not to, because I don't want something that you spoil something for me. I'm probably never going to read it. But tell me why it means a ton to you, and why you argue that I should move it up. I'm always got room for that schedule to mix around a little bit. If it's not like some big, heavy 20-book series, I'll consider moving it up, just like I did with the Vanished Lands. So hit me there, guys, and I will talk to you in the comments.